So today I am going to be talking about my role specifically, which was quick service food and beverage. It's a role that not very many people originally want, and people have actually heard a lot of bad things about it, but I'm here to kind of defend it and actually show you what it really is and explain to you pretty much all the aspects of the role. Quick service food and beverage is basically fast food. It can range from outdoor vending in parks, food courts in hotels, which is what I did, quick service restaurants in the parks, all different kinds of things. You basically are in charge of either a cashier, grill, making the food, giving the food to the guests, bussing, stocking, cleaning up after people, greeting, all sorts of kinds of things. What you do at your specific job depends on where you are placed. Like, I worked mainly in the Polynesian Resort. I was deployed to the Grand Floridian and also Art of Animation, and both places did things a little bit differently than the Polynesian. I worked in Captain Cook's in the Polynesian, which is where they sell Dole Whip. So the different roles that I had were stocking, kitchen/counter, cashier, either morning or afternoon, and busser. Stocker is something that I didn't do more than just my first day of training. It's basically restocking the cooler and making sure everyone has what they need to be able to sufficiently give out the food that the guests are asking for. Counter was my favorite place. It's where you are behind the counter, not necessarily cooking. We had a culinary team that was in charge of cooking, so we didn't have anyone in charge of the grill. That was part of the college program. So this was just getting the orders together. Like, the culinary team would cook the food, then they would put it up in the window, and then we would get the receipts, and we would look at the receipt, see what plates go with each receipt in each order. Then we'd get all of those foods, like say they got a burger and a sandwich and a salad. We would get those items that were prepared already and put them on a tray and then page them on the counter. And then the guests would come up and give their pager to you so you can give them their food. And there's also cashier, which is very self-explanatory. The cashier is just the person who takes what they ordered, adds them up, asks if they're on the dining plan, which is a very big part of quick service. Dining plan is something that Disney has that guests can order ahead of time, which is basically they're paying for their meals before they actually have their vacation. So they have a set number of meals that they can get without needing to worry about the price, because it's one flat price. There's different kinds that you can get, but the one that we had to deal with was quick service. And the quick service section of the meal plan includes a drink, an entree, and a dessert. And explaining that over and over again is basically your job when you are on cashier. And you have to make sure they have every aspect of the dining plan done and ready to go. The cashier is also another position where you get a lot of guest interaction. It's where I had most of my moments, my memorable moments, in interacting with guests. And also, it's also a good opportunity to like give kids stickers, create little magical moments and whatnot. The last position that I had at my workplace was busser, which is basically bussing the dining room. It was definitely not my favorite position, but it was very straightforward, very easy. You have different kinds of chemicals that you need to use to clean the tables or clean the outside tables, keep the dining room in order, make sure the drink station is clean and stocked and ready to go, make sure all the chips and the drinks and everything are well stocked and looks nice and everything. It's also a good place where you get a lot of questions from guests, because you're the one out there with them where they're eating and where they're walking around. That's also another place where you can get a lot of interaction with guests. Some other places had, like the Art of Animation and Grand Floridian had different roles. You could actually cook food at both Art of Animation and Grand Floridian. The Grand had one job that required actually bringing the food to the tables, kind of like a sit-down restaurant, instead of paging, which is what we did the Polynesian. I actually really enjoyed being the person who brought the food to the tables, because it was kind of like, it was another way to interact with guests, and it kept you busy, and it was, I don't know, I thought it was fun. Art of Animation, it's a much bigger resort. The Polynesian location only has like roughly 7 to 10 people working at a time. The Art of Animation cafeteria has at least 45 people working at a time. It is much larger. So everyone's position is much more specific. You would be assigned to a specific section to bus, like say you were assigned to Route 66 or the Pride Lands or whichever themed area, because each of the areas were quite large. You could be assigned to work as a stalker for one specific cooler, and then someone else is assigned to a different cooler because they have more than one. You also could be assigned to just take out trash for 3 hours, and trust me, I did that more than once, and that wasn't very fun, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Just saying that the different locations have different kinds of roles. Those are kind of the basic ones that I had to do. Outdoor vending has a little bit of a different flavor to it. You kind of move around locations during the day. That's all I really know about outdoor vending, but I know a blog called DCP Dreams Come True that I read before I started my program that is very, very in-depth about quick service outdoor vending, and I can put the link right up here. She was in Frontierland most of the time for outdoor foods, and I'm sure she would love to answer any questions if you have any. Someone asked about training. Training, you start by, you go to orientation, you learn all about your location, you get a tour of your either park or resort, you go to computer training, which is a day or two of really long hours on a computer, and it's not the most fun activity, but it's where you learn all about the dining plan, how to use the cashier kiosk, like how to use the touch screen. If you're from a different country, this is where they also teach you about American money and like how to tell the difference. You go get your costume. Mine was beautiful. Mine was a lovely tacky floral color with orange pants. Yay. Most of the costumes are not very flattering, I will warn you that right now. I, without a doubt, had the ugliest costume out of all of my friends. Then when you're done training on the computer, and after you get your costume, you also get free shoes if you work in quick service or you work in any type of food service. They give you a non-stick shoe. Honestly, if you can find some on your own beforehand that are comfortable, please do. And if you don't, buy Dr. Scholl's insoles or something, because the shoes they give you are so uncomfortable within your first few weeks. My feet were throbbing after being on them for 8.5 hours. Because most of the time you are on your feet for at least 7 to 8 hours a day. You only get about a half an hour to an hour break. After a while you do get used to standing for so long and your feet get used to it and you break into the shoes, but I do recommend some sort of arch supports or insoles to kind of cushion your shoe, because those shoes they're so uncomfortable. After you do your computer training, right, get your costume, get your shoes, you go to your first position. Some training for some places takes much longer than others. Mine took only 5 days, 1 in each position, except 2 days on cashier, because I had morning and afternoon, and those are 2 different menus. My friend who worked in the Wilderness Lodge, she had like multiple weeks of training before she was done. I don't know, just depends on the location. I know people at Art of Animation had a really long training experience, but that's because they have so many different positions that people can be. It just depends on how big your location is and how much you need to learn to make sure you're ready. Then you get an assessment. My assessment was just, my manager asked me a few questions, she knew I was ready, so we moved on and I passed. It was really easy. Some places actually have a computer where you have to answer questions. You have to get like a certain number right, or else you're not technically off of training yet. Most college program people have closing hours. Mine typically would start around 3:30 and go to 11 or 11:30. The latest I would go is until 1:30 in the morning. That was usually 5 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. And that's because my location was 24 hours, so they needed someone to be with the graveyard shift to be able to get everything ready so she could be by herself. The morning shifts can start as early as 6:30 in the morning and usually go into about 3. Basically you're opening and then you're going until the afternoon people can come and bump you out. When you work in a resort, I think you would typically end just a few hours after your place closes. Mine didn't close, so it was a little different. So roughly between 12 and 12:30 is when people would get off in resorts. I could be wrong, but that's usually what I would hear. When you're in the parks, Animal Kingdom people usually close much earlier because the park closes earlier. And Magic Kingdom had the latest hours because they'll have extra magic hours that sometimes last until 3 in the morning, and then you have to stay afterward to be able to close after the whole park closes. especially if you're on Main Street. Hollywood Studios and Epcot usually closes at 9, might have extra magic hours to 11. Not too bad of hours there. If you're in quick service, you can sometimes work at either the Flower and Garden Festival or the Food and Wine Festival held at Epcot if you sign up during your program. Someone asked what are the chances of getting an indoor versus an outdoor position in quick service. I would say it just depends on what you say in your interview. They asked me if I prefer working indoors and outdoors, and I said indoors, and they gave me indoors. I kind of wanted to work in a park, but honestly, I did not mind working in a resort. I actually really liked working in a resort. It's usually much more calm, much more chill of an atmosphere than in a park, just depending on how busy it is. It depends on how busy it is in the park or how many people are staying in your resort. I recommend this role to people who enjoy fast-paced work environments. I think quick service is just what you make of it. A lot of people don't expect to work so much, and then because they have no previous work experience, and then they go into this in a quick service role and just are overwhelmed and just hate it because they're not used to working. They weren't expecting to work so much. They're probably expecting to play in the parks. The college program is a job. It is a full-time job. It is not meant for you to just goof off and have fun. You are there to work, and that is a big thing I need to stress about this program. Quick service is basically what you make of it. If you have a good attitude, have fun coworkers, really take time to make sure the guests have a good experience, then I feel like you'd have a good experience with it. If you don't like fast-paced, you don't think you can handle it, you really don't feel like you can handle taking out trash or wiping up tables or cleaning up spills or cooking food or anything in the job's description, then it'd probably be a good idea to avoid it. No matter what level of interest that you put on your application, you could, as long as you have some sort of interest in it, you can be chosen for those roles. I put quick service as a low interest. I'm being honest here. I did. And I got placed there. Honestly, I understand why I got placed there. I said I liked fast-paced environments and I like working in a group, indoors. They gave me a fast-paced work environment. I worked indoors and I was working with a group. It was like a team of people. Just keep in mind that it can be something you describe. I overall enjoyed my experience. My coworkers were awesome. Met some amazing guests. It was kind of fun working in other locations. It's a very, very versatile role. You can pick up shifts in the parks if you'd like to try something like that. They usually have some open. I believe that's all about quick service. I hope you guys got enough information that you need. If you have any more questions, just ask. I'm always available on Tumblr or Twitter or anything like that. Otherwise, thanks and bye for now.